stiff truth.
See, I got an issue here. As I sit here and enjoy this, we're already like almost halfway done.
Well, let's start the show.
We can start the show. All right. Like what is the MPH line I told you about? It's like I can unhook my jaw like a python. Jesus Christ. Super gay.
As intended.
I was thinking about whether or not we talk about that too. I was like, I don't want to. No, because then I'm coming off like, homophobic, and also, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird that I have a little bit of an issue with it. I can't help but start giggling like hysterically when the super gay scenes happen. I was like, oh God, that's so gay. Look at him go. It's like I'm proud. I'm a little bit embarrassed. And at the same time, I'm thinking about how progressive it is too, because, whatever.
Is that the one time where you use gay, but it's not derogatory?
Yeah,
like that is super gay, but it's like a dude all sweating on the other guy's back, like going to Pound Town. Like, yeah, that is super gay.
Yeah. talking about numbing agents while you're flipping over a naked dude to stick your giant member in his butt. Woo! That, sir, is gay. Like that's Mount Gay, if you ask me, right there.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. Welcome to the Stiff Truth. I'm Bob West. I'm here with Scott Casanova, and just to get in what we were talking about, so that a little bit of context could come in here. There's a show on Netflix. Is it Netflix?
Mm-hmm.
It's Netflix, right?
Netflix.
It's called Uncoupled.
Uncoupled, produced and starring our good friend of the show, NPH.
Oh, we love NPH.
We do. We really do. So. Me and Bob were just discussing that it's a progressive show. It's a good show. It's a great drama, comedy / drama type show. But I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not huge in the gay entertainment catalog per se. I'm not really an expert, but it may be a pioneer in the sense that like it's the first like very gay, like I was saying, just a very extremely gay.
I would say graphically gay, right?
Yeah, you could say that. You could definitely say that. Graphically gay.
The sex scenes are really kind of jarring, right? The graphic nature of them.
And it's not even like it's approaching gay pornography status or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. There's like almost zero real nudity in the sense of like private parts and and orifices or what have you. But
you're really not selling it, Scott.
But I know you were expecting a lot more. When I led in and I started with super gay, you were like, yeah, you got me.
And tell me more. You've hooked me. Now finish me off. Make the sale close.
That's exactly what MPH says in the first scene. Yep, you got me. Finish me off. but it because I believe it is like the first of its kind, where it's just extremely openly gay, in sexual like tense situations and what have you. I did find myself a little uncomfortable with the amount of gayness, not like a off-putting, like, oh, this is horrible. I'm so offended. I can't believe this is so goddamn gay, but more just like, I'm not used to it. I'm used to, and it's run of the mill. Don't even bat an eye at like heterosexual, like, sex drama comedy shows, whatever. Sex in the City is like the first one that pops in my mind, where of course that's kind of like a huge theme. Doesn't bother me at all because it's something that we're used to, but definitely going to have to ease into Uncoupled if you're not quite used to that. I'll tell you that now.
You might need like an anal gel or a lubrication to ease on into this one.
Or even a numbing agent, whatever, right? Something I didn't even know was a thing until recently. And it is television, so maybe that's not a thing. But yeah, whew. I'll tell you what, Bob, I'm glad to be back here with you. We have a outside of Uncoupled, we got a really fun show today. We got a lot of fun things to talk about. There's been some goings-ons in the world too. That sounds right?
Yeah, there's a
Goings-ons.
couple. One thing that's goings-ons
What's
is
that?
this drink right here. Look at that
Oh,
beautiful drink.
I'll tell you what, look at that. It is a looker, like you said. This is something where if you were going to kind of line up the supermodel of cocktails, this one's front and center, if you ask me. As of right now, a little anticlimactic, right? With the flavors, because I'm still on the top half. So I'm still working the champagne of this bad boy. But Bob, just to not leave everybody in the dark for too long. I mean, we've trickled it a little bit, but this is a Champagne Supernova. So cheers to you, my friend. Let's enjoy another sip, huh?
Yeah, cheers. This is a great drink. The directions say not to stir it. Obviously, you can't shake it. It's like 3/4 champagne, but it doesn't even say to stir it. So it looks like it's a layered drink.
Mm-hmm.
That blue that you see is blue curacao. Obviously, that's always the case, right? So, but it's also got gin. It's got vodka, the curacao. It's got some sweet and sour in there. It's got a kiss of cranberry juice, right?
Oh, I like that little chef's kiss.
Top it all off with champagne and fill it up with champagne, and really, like Scott was saying, is that we have the champagne really to get through. I'm now starting to taste some of the stuff as I'm halfway through this drink. I'm starting to taste what's on the bottom. I don't know what to expect, but I'll report back.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm going to be waiting. Pens and needles. The thing is here too, just because I know there was probably some people scrambling for like a pad and a pencil to write down what Bob was saying. We didn't really give them any of the proportions. So let me sure it up real quick here. It's a half ounce of each of the boozes. So half ounce of vodka, half ounce of gin, half ounce of blue curacao. And honestly, blue curacao, it's just got such a darling color. And every drink you do, that's going to be the star with presentation. And I'll tell you what, man, if they don't have like a Papa Smurf type drink, I think I smell a Stiff Truth original right there, buddy, because we could have fun with that one. But anyways, and then it says to a dash of the both. You said a nice little kiss of the cranberry juice. Same thing with the sour mix, just a dash of each, and then fill the rest up with champagne. So of course, me and Bob having somewhat higher tolerance to alcohol than maybe some other folks out there, we decided to use a pint glass for this bad boy so we could get a nice generous dose of champagne on top. But you're right, I'm about halfway on mine. It looks fabulous. I mean, it just looks great. You want to kind of stir it to taste all the stuff at the bottom, because that's kind of the booze and the meat of the drink, so to speak. But goddamn, I just can't do it because two reasons. I'm a stickler for the rules, right? And the bartender book did not say anything about stirring, so I'm not going there. And two, it's a nice look, but
yeah, it's a good drink. But I'm a sucker for champagne, or prosecco in this case, right?
Bob,
Kirkland prosecco. Got to get the purple.
Yeah. you really do. And like we talked about before, what's really nice for us, I think for anybody really, is once you commit to having a mixed drink with champagne in it, that means you've got to pop open a bottle of bubbly, which means you've already carved out some extra drinking later that day. I mean, unless you're going to be a total piece of shit and either waste or try to like recap champagne, which just doesn't work. So I think we'll be enjoying some Prosecco Solar after the show. At least I will. I don't know.
100%. Once you pop a bottle of champagne, there's no going back. You're in there for the duration, and you're in there for the long haul. Speaking of long haul, let's move on to Brittany Griner.
Oh, I like what you did there. Now, poor Brittany Griner, but hopefully what happened here, and like we were talking about off show a few days ago, this is just a political move, I think. But Jesus Christ, 9 years for drug smuggling. Now, mind you, everybody knows this too. She had a couple fucking like THC vape cartridges in her suitcase when she was trying to leave the country from playing basketball there. I don't know how many months ago this was. If
it was in January.
Okay, that kind of makes sense. But Jesus Christ, bro, that's a really long time, and in a Russian jail too. And as a WNBA African American and homosexual, both of those things does not bode well as just kind of just how they treat people in Russia. So
yeah, needless to say, most people in Russia aren't going to be watching Uncoupled.
No. Well, they might be, but
but they won't get caught doing it, right?
No,
So
they're not going to tell
it's very
anybody.
frowned upon, even criminal in Russia. So, yeah, it's a shame. Um, it reminds me of that scene from Half Baked. He's like, 9 years for weed.
Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
uh, obviously they threw the book at her and they put her in the max so that they could max out the leveraging negotiation power with the U.S. on some prisoner swaps because that's what they're looking to do here. It's very visible. The case is never going to go away. I doubt very much that she ever serves that whole sentence there, just because of how visible she is, being athlete of her stature, and if you've ever looked at her stats, Scott, she's quite an athlete. She's quite accomplished, right?
She's
She's one of the best in the league. Just has trophies and trophies, and defensive player of the years, and just so much shit to her. So, as far as like what she's won, and I don't know. I think it's a shame because obviously, you get caught with some weed, and even in Russia, you're probably looking at a couple years or whatever. But for them to throw like the max was 10 years, she's already been in there close to 6 months. So the 9 years is almost the whole max, and I'm sure that's not a coincidence.
Yeah, well, and I honestly wonder, considering the attempts by negotiation to barter essentially from the United States right now. It's like they on the table, they're saying, hey, give us Griner, give us, and I honestly, I feel bad. I don't know who the other gentleman is that's in Russia, but he's another, I think he's like is he like an ex-Marine or something like that? There's another guy that they basically want him and Griner, and they were going to give back like this arms smuggler, right? That's like sentenced for like 25 years in the United States. So considering that we have one of theirs, sentence him to 25 years here, it makes sense to me. And what's really kind of upsetting is she goes through all this like emotional kind of trials right now, ups and downs, roller coasters. And I there probably wasn't even any thought behind the case. Do you know what I mean? They probably right out of the gate, the prosecution and even probably the defense team and the judge were like, well, yeah, I mean, we have to like kind of throw the book at her because if we let her go right now, then we don't have our biggest bargaining piece to kind of play with the United States and get what we want out of this. So I doubt there was even a consideration of even doing anything besides throwing the fucking book at her and making sure now she's sticky, right? Now she literally is the big bargaining chip that we are going to have to do something to get her back. And we're obviously going to have to give them something. So I think it was just when I saw that she was sentenced so long, I was like, well, figures. I mean, it fucking sucks, but figures. I didn't think they were going to do anything else or there was going to be this like super surprise, like dismissal or some shit. It's like, believe it or not, the judge in Russia said, fuck Vladimir Putin and what he just told me last night on the phone when he called me. And I'm going to let her go because I believe in justice and the right thing to do. I didn't see that happen.
Right. It's 3 years probation and community service.
Right. Yeah.
So everything's going to work out because now we've got former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson.
Hey, Billy. We love that guy.
And when Billy gets involved, people get swapped. Prisoners get exchanged. So the person that's also over there is a former Marine, Paul.
I was
Whelan.
right. Okay. I didn't do the guy justice, but at least I remembered he was a former Marine. So
ABC News reporting that Bill Richardson says that they're looking for a two for two prison swap with Greiner and Whelan. And yes, the arms dealer is Victor Bout, who's serving a 25-year prison sentence in the U.S. So that guy and someone else. It doesn't say on here who that other person is, but Richardson says that he feels pretty confident that he's going to get this done and that he's gonna get her free. So he says, my view is optimistic. I think she's going to be free. There's going to be a prisoner swap. I think it's going to be 2 for 2. Can't forget about Paul Whelan. So that was a direct quote from Richardson. So that's that. It's unfortunate, and she finds herself in a spot, but I've seen my brother, like, for some reason has a thing for this case, right? And I don't know like what his grind is with this case.
What
But
his
it's like
Griner is.
yeah, every time something is like up coming from him, I always like see it in my Facebook feed because he's my brother, so I see what his comments and stuff are. And it's just like it's really strange how infatuated he seems to be with this case. But I do kind of agree with him on one thing. He said he's a real do the crime, do the time kind of a guy. He's a police officer in Texas. And 100%, yeah, you got to do your time if you're gonna be taking those risks and doing the crime. But I do say that Russia ain't a place to like fuck around like that. What a bonehead thing to do. And just in general, especially in the climate of everything that's going on with Ukraine at the time. The war hadn't started yet, but they were surrounding Ukraine, and there's some pretty hardcore East European beef going down there, right? So just for her to be so cavalier with her weed smoking, and I would throw it up there that like, it's just weed. You get paid $1 million a year in Russia as a basketball player. Like you should just like not smoke weed while you're in Russia and take your $1 million and go home and then smoke all the weed. But like, it just seems like a really boneheaded thing to do.
I agree 100%. And I couldn't agree more with that sentiment too, is at the end of the day, it would behoove you to like not take any kind of globally controlled substance on international travel with you, regardless of who you are. You know what I mean? So like, yeah. it just seems like the smart thing to do, especially with a country like Russia, where you already know they're very unreasonable compared to the United States. And you've already got like a couple of blows against you.
Is that another reference to
Uncoupled? No, but do you know what I mean? Again, she's African-American. She's homosexual. Those are two things that are extremely difficult to be married in Russia.
And married. And I'm sure they just love that over there.
Right. You know what I mean? So she's already got 2 strikes against her from the lens of like Russian society as it is. Maybe not the Russian people, but Russian political society, right? So that she goes in there and she has something that's a controlled substance in that country that they don't fuck around with. They already are looking for a reason and way to nab a notable American, and you kind of just teed them up to do so. So I agree. Again, it's very unfortunate. Who knows? Maybe if I was a WNBA star and I had a lot of things going on, I would have potentially forgot what was in my bag too or whatever, but probably not. I probably, no matter who I am, would still be mindful that there's weed in my bag, considering the era that I grew up in where it was like you could go to jail for having a roach in your ashtray in your car.
Well, and I know that she doesn't make like obviously the same pay that men basketball players make. It's like not even close, right? But I would say this: she can afford a new fucking vape cartridge when she gets stateside. So like, why would you not just fucking ditch your $30 cartridge or whatever and just get a new one when you got here? Like, what the actual fuck is that all about? Again, I keep coming back to the like it's the most boneheaded thing to do and the least self-awareness like you would have. Like if there was an NBA, a WNBA Madden game, like her like offensive defense has got to be in the 90s, but her like drug awareness has got to be like in the low 2s.
her drug intelligence,
her geopolitical and drug awareness is like really low.
Well, and you know what I was thinking about too with this whole scenario is I feel really bad for this ex-Marine, because if Greiner isn't added to the table for this negotiation, is this guy ever getting out of there, or is anybody going to?
Well, he's already, I think, like half through his sentence.
Yeah, exactly.
He's been there, I think, since 2018. He's been locked up.
So it's kind of a silver lining. It's a good thing that somebody very notable is now, in the cards there for this negotiation, because without her, I don't even think he's coupled into anything. And then here we are. This guy's just like rotting in a Russian jail. But it's crazy. I mean, we'll see how this goes.
Oh no, 16-year prison sentence for spying.
Oh, that makes sense. Well, and here's the other thing, dude. They made quite a leap, but this is kind of, the crooked Russian justice system. What did she have? I think she had like two
pens,
2 vape cartridges with THC, and they busted her for drug smuggling. drug smuggling usually insinuates larger quantities than obvious personal use, and usually like the intent to distribute. Like there's going to usually be some other paraphernalia and tools where you look like you're going to scale things out with distribution. So it's interesting that they literally threw a charge like that. I heard that's a big leap, dude. Like, hey, look, that you've got like a roach on you. You're obviously smuggling drugs into the country. It's like,
well, I'm sure they looked at who she was and was just like, what do we have to make it stick, and so that we can max this opportunity out. Well, let us make it smuggling instead of just possession. And I'm sure there's some literal verbiage in there that they're taking advantage of in that law, because obviously it's personal consumption.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
Like, give people drops of your cartridge.
Yeah, and we'll continue to follow this, man, because from what I understand, her defense team, which I haven't done the research on this, I'm not sure her defense team. I believe they're Russian.
Yeah, they're like Russian lawyers. So they had that broken English accent.
Like, how much do you trust them? I mean, honestly, no bullshit, you know, and not like saying they're not like they don't have integrity or whatever, but to a large extent, I have to imagine everybody is being like their strings are being pulled by Vladimir Putin, right? I mean, like, of course, you're not doing anything in Russia on your own free will. That's not how that country works.
Not anything that hits the news headlines.
Right. So I imagine like this is all a ruse anyways. At the end of the day, it's all just a dog and pony show. I mean, like, hey, we're gonna appeal your case. You're like, yeah, sure we are. We're gonna show up in court. We're gonna say some shit in Russian that you don't understand, and then we're gonna leave, and you're still gonna be in jail.
Hey, they shaved like a half a year off of her sentence.
There we go. Well, hey, kudos
to they did her a solid.
That's a good thing they did there. Well, interesting stuff. But I'll tell you what. Very, very good news is involves your background there. I was blown away. I didn't honestly see this. I don't know when they voted. When did they vote? Can you look that up?
Yeah, it was like last week.
Okay, yeah, it was. I want to say later in last week, but guys, very, very proud right now of Kansas. It's weird. You're not going to have another soundbite in any of our shows or any, probably like me throughout my entire life where I'm saying I'm proud of Kansas. But if anybody doesn't know, it looked like prior to last week that Kansas had the potential to straight up just outlaw abortion. And they decided the other way. And it looks like they decided the other way by not a close margin either. It looks like almost 60% to 40%. So they did uphold abortion rights in Kansas, which was, I think, a very surprising and maybe a foreshadowing to the Republicans on what potentially will happen if this goes how they wanted to. And that's where each individual state gets to outright vote on abortion laws, because I think the color of the state geopolitically and stuff like that, I don't think that quite matches up with how many women actually come out to vote and how just how important this topic is to women and men, but I think women mainly, of course, across the country, that has been unaccounted for. Your thoughts, buddy?
Well, again, and we've talked about it in previous shows. I think this is just following us up on that assumption that we had discussed about this being just a grave miscalculation from the GOP. Yep. Just thinking, well, everyone votes for us because we have abortion. And it's just like, well, that's not the only reason that they vote for you guys. It's one of the issues, and some people probably do that you are the anti-abortion party. But I think this shows that even in a very red state with Kansas, and let's mind you, Kansas does not have a huge city that Democrats typically can offset a large GOP base with, right?
No, they have Topeka and Kansas City, the Kansas side.
The Kansas side, right, exactly. So yeah. So I think this is like a true heartland, a GOP kind of survey, essentially, of really what the numbers represent. And what the numbers represent, as you can see on my screen here, is 59% to 41 is what the vote ended up being in Kansas. So roughly 60% of the state said that no, abortion should just be legal straight up across the board, and that is it caught many top GOP leaders off guard. They weren't ready for that, and I can't imagine how they weren't ready for that. Us over here as novice kind of talking heads about politics, we already saw this foreshadowed weeks ago, right? and so now here it actually comes. They put it to vote. So much that Indiana was planning on putting this to a vote statewide. They pulled that back, and now the GOP is having closed private discussions about how they're going to draft up their anti-abortion bill. So I think now with these Republican state Senate led states, they're going to try to just pass these anti-abortion bills without the consent of the public and let them do what they're going to do at the polls. And they're basically going to ask for forgiveness instead of permission here.
You know,
right?
that there's a couple of things I got to say about that real quick, because two things come to mind. One, I love how how the GOP is like, wait a minute. This is not what our voters want. Well, we've got to find a way to manipulate this and make sure we don't get them what they want. You're like, what the fuck is that shit? And the other thing you mentioned, I think, is a key thing here. This is a key indication, Bob, that the assumption that the GOP made on a whole, right? Because there's some moderates, but the assumption they made is that anti-abortion and the right to life is a big win and of big importance for all Republicans, when at the end of the day, what this shows, and what me and you already know, is it's the one of a couple things that a lot of people that are Republicans by default don't like at all about the Republican Party, but everything else falls in line a little bit more than the liberal side of things. So the people that are fiscally conservative, that are wealthy, that this and this, and then they're like, the anti-abortion thing, I could take it or leave it at the end of the day, because I can't be a liberal because all these other things just don't line up for me. So I have to by default be a conservative. And I think this is an eye-opening event that kind of shows and just gives me affirmation that there's a vast majority of actual moderate Republicans that just kind of deal with the right to life idea, and they don't stand behind it as much as like the GOP thinks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%. I know. Well, shit. I mean, probably the majority of people that I interact with are conservatives. Both mine and Jess's families are really conservative. Mine's from east and southeast Texas. Hers is from oil country in New Mexico. Like, lots of conservatives all around us. And I would still say that the majority of people that I know and talk to, not by a lot, but I would even say the majority of Republicans that I know are pro-choice. So yeah. And that's why I was able to speak to this so quickly. It's like, well, wait a minute. I know some really conservative people that pump the brakes when it comes to abortion. Like, well, I don't want to. And it's either because they just truly believe in that right specifically. It's not that, or it's not my place to judge what your decisions are. Yeah. Or it's the other typical conservative viewpoint, which is, I don't want government interfering in my lives more than they 100%. Already do. Right. 100%. So there's those two things. But what it is the evangelical right, I think, has had so much financial incentive to do this, because there's this, I don't know if you know it, Scott, but with churches not being taxed, people just funnel untaxed money right to the GOP.
Get the fuck out of here.
I don't know if you knew that or not, but it's true. So I think that there's a lot of that's influencing this decision. So the people that are funneling this money do have a lot more invested into it for whatever reason. I don't want to dig into why they're into this. I don't think it's a life thing. I don't really know the reason specifically. It's probably a whole nother show as to what do pro-life people really have to gain. And I'm not talking about the people that have been convinced of it. I'm talking about the people that are like really pushing and spending millions and millions of dollars for it.
Well, I mean, honestly, and I hate to say this, but it just might be as simple and as ridiculous as they cannot handle when people are doing things they don't agree with, and they have to force their ideals on everybody else. And if that's not happening, they can't handle things, and they need to take a stand and make sure that nobody can live their free life. They have to make sure that their ideal of society is projected and adhered to by the entire world. That it might be as simple as they have a mission to be in our fucking business. You know what I mean?
It's very strange, because I don't know. I grew up in Reagan's GOP, and it was the complete opposite for like my whole life until like the last 15 years about, let's get government off of our ass. Let's minimize the taxes. Let's minimize their power, give more power to the states and more power to the individual. And it was always states and individuals' rights. But now here it is all of a sudden like, let's promote this socialism.
Look what's happening. Like we talked about earlier today, this whole reversal of road is backfiring on them if they actually let states and individuals choose. Example, inner Kansas. You know what I mean? And
we're
now
very
they're like,
proud of the Kansans.
Kansanites.
I think they're Kansans.
Kansanites kind of sounds like a weird Mormon offshoot. I don't want anything to do with that. But the other thing, I think we've talked about this before, Bob. Man, you pull the evangelical douchebags out of the conservative and right-wing ideology, I think we have a much better party for a lot more people. And it's just a crying shame. It's the biggest thing that turns me off to Republicans and to the GOP is the interwoven bullshit of the Christian faith that people hold as like their foundational kind of principles. And it's just a crying shame, bro. You pull that out, it seems like a pretty decent party after that nonsense is gone. You know what I mean?
I'm telling you, if they could just like change maybe 3 or 4 key things of how they handle business, they seem like they could be just the party of the people, right? It really does. But they're holding on to those key
I like
things.
that, Bob. We should do some reforming and be like, hey, this is the party people, the people of the party, baby. Come on, jump on in. Party. We got rid of the elephant, and it's a fucking sexy panther, baby. Let's go.
and what happens if the GOP disassociates himself from Christians and evangelicals, right? And what happens if the GOP like really starts turning it back, and all the dinosaurs in the GOP start dying off, for lack of a better term? I mean, senators don't retire very often. They like get clawed away on their deathbed, right? So what happens when some of these dinosaurs start dying off in the GOP? What does that actually look like? Or is it going to be Matt Gaetz' GOP? Is that really what it's going to turn into? Because if it does, then they're probably doomed. I don't think that's going to work very well over the next few years.
They'll be doomed, but everybody will have fabulous hair. So there's pros and cons. You know what I mean? So there is that. It's interesting because I think the concern by the GOP, and I say the GOP like the royal GOP, right? Like obviously there's a lot of people that have different opinions, but I think the concern is that they lose the Christian base, that their party implodes and like they become irrelevant and they lose everything. I think, and I'm willing to kind of roll the dice on this and put my chips on this, I think the opposite would happen. I think they pull that shit out of the party, rebrand themselves. I think they grab a lot of moderate liberals like yourself that actually would go to that party because it will be like, wait a minute, this is like my perfect fit now. And I don't think losing the hardcore fanatical religious base is really that many people when you get down to brass tacks. I really don't think it is. It's unfortunate that it seems like there are a lot of people because they're very, very noisy, like we've talked before. But I think they are a vast minority of the actual true Republican base. So I'd be interested to see, as a sociological kind of experiment, how that would play out, but I just don't think it's going to happen. I think you do that, and that's kind of probably one of the trumpets going off about the end of the world if like the GOP removes kind of their Christian faith foundation.
Well, and I've talked to you offline on this, and if there's really like 3 huge things that get me from even considering most GOP candidates, right? I really won't vote for someone that ties in Christian nationalism. I'm not down for that at all. So I mean, if they could get rid of that, they could just get rid of the abortion topic at all. And don't even have a side, just like let the women and their doctor and their families, and that's a medical decision, not a government decision. Let's just leave it there, and then let it doesn't need to be a law or not a law. All right. What the law needs to be is that states can't enforce a law. Right. And then that should just leave it at that, and then leave it with the people in general. And then the other side is the gun control, right? If they could get on board, which to their credit and to John Cornyn's credit, senator from Texas, if they can get a common sense gun responsibility laws in place and put a little bit more on that, I'd have a hard time deciding on candidates at that point. Now
Yeah.
you've got me listening. You got me paying attention. You got me really digging into the person, into the platform, into their character much more. Because as soon as you start throwing that radical religious shit at me, you've lost me from the start.
Dude, 100%. And it's almost, in my perception is, and I have to, just because I am empathetic to the extent that I've got a lot of people that are close to me that are pretty religious or whatever. But as soon as you start throwing out some of that rhetoric, your perceived intelligence level is completely gone with me. You know what I mean? That's the other thing. It's like, okay, now we're talking about unicorns and shit. Like, it seems to me like rational people can't have, and I hate to say that, but you know what I mean? To me, it just doesn't line up, right? It just doesn't line up. It is interesting, Bob. Something else that you had mentioned too is, I think I might have lost it. I had something else, Bob, but we're just gonna have to circle back when I have more bandwidth mentally, okay? Because I have finished my drink, and I'll tell you what, the bottom was quite nice.
It was good, right?
I could actually taste all the boozes, and it got me teed up. I want to say that I feel like we should be able to stir this drink. I don't know how you can, just maybe a slow kind of rotation for a couple. I don't know. But it's
hey, I'm glad that we only have like a good 15 minutes left in the show, because then we're going to go make more drinks.
Bob, we do love that. But we'll get back to this conversation a little bit more here. I think this is not going to go away in the sense of what's happening right now. But I hope, Bob, I do hope that more states decide to push forward with independent state voting, because I think the individual is shining right now. And I think this is going to be a theme throughout the country. I mean, honestly, if this was like Massachusetts or New York or California or something like that, I would be like, yeah, okay, yeah, no, not a big deal. But even I must admit, I was taken back by this verdict here. You know what I mean?
And a couple of things with Kansas. First off, I'm really proud of the Kansas folks, right?
Kansanites?
The Kansans, the Kansans, right? I'm really proud of the people of Kansas, and just in general, because we know it's a red dominated state. We know it is, and that's fine. But to actually practice what you preach with democracy and freedom and rights and voting, and then give that vote to actually the people. There's nothing more democratic than a blind statewide election of registered voters of any party affiliation. Go to the polls. What do you guys want? The majority of you say this, and overwhelmingly in this case, that's what's going to be done. I fucking love it. I applaud it. That is America through and through. I wish more states would do it. People holding on to their power will never let it happen, as you can already see with what's happening now in Indiana. And I think that's a shame, and I think it's a sham, and I hope there's enough intelligent people out there that see right through it and can get over the whatever CNN or Fox News is trying to brainwash them to be, and go use their own brain and go put this to a vote. Because if 2/3 of the people like that are vote nationwide, it's going to be an interesting midterm.
Yeah, well, and that's the other thing I want to mention. I still don't remember what the fuck I was going to say, which is always frustrating. It sucks when you lose something like that. But I will say this too. This is an interesting turn of events with just midterms in general. And we talked about it a little while ago. I was kind of saying lights out. Republicans are going to clean house. I'm not so sure that's the case now for a couple of reasons. This has a little bit to do with it. But the other thing that I saw recently, I was like, God, this guy can't get out of his own way, is Trump now is literally removing by endorsing other Republican candidates with incumbents like Liz Cheney in Wyoming and stuff like that. He's literally removing people from the race that could win and basically dooming people out of the gate that look like they're poised to lose. So you have like the combination of Trump going AWOL, pretty much ignoring, like kind of like actually helping the GOP when he's actually hurting them. And then you have shit like this too. So I from what was once, I'll say like maybe 6 months ago, a shoo-in for a Republican dominated like Senate and the House of Representatives, I'm not so sure anymore.
Yeah, and polls show nobody likes Biden. We knew that no one was going to like him before the election even happened.
But they liked him more than Trump.
Well, that's the thing. They like Trump even less. So as much as like no one wanted Biden in, they wanted Trump not to be in even more. And it's the exact same thing that happened to Hillary in 2016, right? Yep. No one wanted Hillary in, but even more people. Or no one wanted Trump in, but even more people didn't want Hillary in. So there you have it.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Who wins, Hillary or Biden?
Neither. Neither one would get the nomination. They wouldn't get past the
If they were
primaries.
going up against each other in like the primaries, and those are the
man.
last two.
Oh, that's fucking tough, dude. I'd have to say Biden just because there's a bunch of people that are gonna vote and just won't vote for a woman. And that's as sad as that is. They're old, they're from the great generation or whatever the fuck. And
The
that's
greatest generation.
Yeah, that's just how they're gonna do it.
Flip side, though, there's a lot of people, because we saw this in 2016, will just vote for her being a woman, and that's it, because they want to be blindly progressive, ignoring that she's a demon from somebody's asshole. You know what I mean? So you never know. It'd be interesting to see, and I'll say Joe Biden 10 years ago. Let's shave a little bit of age off the guy and give him a fighting chance. And that way we've got like an equal age Demon Clinton versus Sleepy Joe.
If you've got a 69-year-old Biden, I'd say Biden. I don't even think it's close. Plus, like, he didn't have like all the weird things against him, like, because Trump ran a pretty gnarly campaign. I mean, Sleepy Joe still sticks to this day, but his cognitive ability and all that has now been in question. All that, when really the dude's in pretty great shape. I mean, he rides a bike farther than I can. So I mean,
whatever. If he falls over, I fall over too.
Dude, I fell down the stairs like 10 times in 1 year. So whatever. It's probably more in shape than I am. So I don't know. It's interesting, and it's probably another show. But who's going to get the Democratic nod? Biden doesn't run. A lot of talk is about Gavin Newsom.
Oh my God.
Do you think someone from California could actually get the overall election? Because most of the country wouldn't, just because he's from California.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to say no, but for some odd reason, I think it makes sense. He's kind of got the look. He's got
a great looking man with a great head of hair.
I mean, he's the yin of the yang of Matt Gaetz with the hair. You know what I mean? Like, they both got some great hair, but it makes sense and it doesn't. I think it's probably the worst decision ever, because I think the guy's a total piece of shit and he's a douchebag. But that kind of lines up with who both parties will choose as their front running candidate. I
think it's going to be Newsom, and I think he's going to run against the governor of Florida. DeSantis, yes.
It's interesting. After the CPAC thing yesterday, it looks like, surprise, surprise, the people like that were polled at CPAC overwhelmingly want Trump again to run in 2024, which kind of makes me want to vomit in my mouth a little bit. But so did some scenes in Uncoupled. You know what I mean? So there is.
Well, we'll definitely keep an eye on that. I don't think it's a coincidence that he hasn't announced yet. I just don't think he's going to run. He's going to take his money and run. So
I hope he does. That's a smart move. You know what I mean? So anyways, you were going to do a transition there. I think I felt it.
Well, I just wanted to get in really Marvel Phase 6. Last week we talked about Marvel Phase 5. We had a lot of information to go on, and we were looking at it. And then I was just like, oh, let's go over Phase 6. And I guess I just didn't remember. But when Kevin Feige was going over that in the announcement,
you remember his name from last week. It's Kevin Feige. Come on.
I probably got caught up because the first thing he did is like, there is going to be a new Fantastic Four, right? And the buzz is that it's going to be John Krasinski.
That sounds about right. I think it's a ski. I believe he's Polish at the end of the day.
John Krasinski. And then so everyone's been kind of a buzz about that. So they announced that. But then there's a timeline full of just a bunch of empty dates. But there were dates, but they didn't say what they were. But what they did say was that there's 2 new full Avenger movies coming at the end of 2026,
2025 or 6. I believe they're both coming out. They come out in the same year. So I believe it's 2025, the latter part of it. Like, there's one summer release, which makes sense, a summer blockbuster. And I think the second one is lined up, the Avengers, the Secret Wars. I think that comes out in like the holiday season of 2025. That's what I believe. I could be wrong, but long short, there's 3 confirmed movies and a lot of speculation about what could be happening, and crazy predictions by all kinds of nerds. And that's where it gets kind of fun, Bob, because I'll say this, Fantastic Four, they've done this a couple of times. the first little whack at it was the one back in the late early 2000s. Does that make sense? You know what I mean by late early,
the
right?
one with Jessica Alba and the dude from what's that bald cop
Michael
from
Sheedle.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes. From The Shield. All right,
The
right.
Shield,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah, something like that.
Which was actually a pretty good movie.
Yeah. Good shit. It was pretty good. Jessica Alba, especially in her heyday, a super smoke show. So that's great. But they're going to do that again, which kind of makes sense because now they're kind of, if you've noticed too, with Phase 5, they're getting into some new stuff, but they're also getting back to some very, very rudimentary types of Marvel, right? And I believe like the Fantastic Four was the very first like team of Marvel way back in the day. Like when you have
I think you might be right about that.
You know what I mean? So I think this goes back to like the 1950s or 60s. I want to say 60s makes sense. So that's cool. The 2 Avenger movies, like we talked about, there's a lot of mystery there. I can't wait to see some of the official trailers. That won't be out for probably another year and a half or something like that. But at the same time, like we were talking about, like Iron Man's dead, which could all change because of the multiverse, right? We know that, but Iron Man's dead. All the Guardians are probably going to be dead by this 3rd movie, it looks like, or at least some key ones. Thor, is he even going to be relevant anymore? Is he going to be around? I don't know. I think Loki's going to have a pretty big part in it, and I think they're poising him and they're building him up to have even a bigger part as a kind of the anti-hero of the whole scenario. So Bruce Banner, what are we doing there? I have no, there's a lot of unknowns.
I think he's done.
Yeah.
Contractually, some of these guys just don't have deals with Marvel Studios anymore, which leads to thinking that they're going to move on, and rightfully so. From an executive standpoint, Chris Evans made $15 million in each of the last Avengers movies.
Good for him.
He made like 800,000 for the Winter Soldier. So why would you do that? Why would you just bring back these guys? It makes sense with the story. He's already old. He's already like given the shield up to Sam Wilson, right? He's already done that. So it's time, if you're going to do it, you can bring in the multiverse, but find a young, cheap stud that can come fill in the new Captain America from whatever multiverse universe he's coming from, and just recast the whole guys, start it all over with a new set of kids that are growing up with these new faces, because we had these Avengers for like the last 15 years. It's time to move on. It's time to get the next set of generation for the next 10 to 15 years. And why not start right now? The last Endgame was a great place to cap it all off with that last cast. There's some key deaths here, and now with like you said, with several of the galaxy Guardians of the Galaxy going away, that's fine, because you can always replace the Guardians of the Galaxy with different Guardians. The individual story can die, but the team and the idea lives on. So I don't know. I'm kind of looking forward to it. I don't want to keep bringing back the old expensive cast until they finally make that bust, right? And then make the decision. Like, just go ahead and end it on a high note and bring them in and bring in the new cast. This is a great way to do it, especially if you want to, if some of those empty spots or a couple of new series to bring on some of these origin stories of new cast members from the multiverse or wherever. Again, I don't know the comic books like a lot of nerds do, so I can't get into the timeline of the details of how that would work. I'm just looking at it from kind of a storytelling and executive kind of paying for everything's perspective. And I think that if we can get a couple of these series to introduce someone and build character depth, that by the time they get into the movie, people will be thirsting for it.
Well, I think there's a lot of good stuff that we can there's a lot of good stuff that can be at play here to really just make those movies fantastic. And I mean, they're confirmed. So they have a roadmap too. They do. It's just, they're not going to tell us everything. And what was left out, some of these predictions, I think, is really where the fun begins, right? In the sense, like, what else is going to happen? Are we going to see a Moon Knight 2 season 2? Are we going to see maybe a Deadpool part 3? Are we going to see what are some other ones that we have here? Young Avengers, the series, Hawkeye season 2, Eternals part 2, Wakanda series, like, a show. I also saw maybe a Ghost Rider series, which to me would be fucking awesome. That was my favorite comic book character of all time when I was collecting comics. So There's a lot of fun things there. One thing that I think they're potentially predicting, I don't think is going to happen, is another Spider-Man. I don't think that's going to happen in the next couple of years. What are your thoughts on that, though? Seems like a fan favorite.
I think they need to bring in some X-Men.
Yeah, that's another one. Look, we got the mutants and we have another X-Men.
Like, there's just so many untold stories of the X-Men.
Yeah,
that they definitely need to bring in more X-Men and start mixing that into the mainstream Marvel lineups. Because right now they're leaving it all to everything but the X-Men, pretty much. It's just like, what can we find that's not X-Men, and we'll go put that in the spotlight. But man, there's a new Wolverine, so that's confirmed, right? The new Wolverine is oh fuck, I forgot his name.
I don't even know either.
Well, either way, there is a new Wolverine, so there's definitely a new Wolverine appearing somewhere. I don't know if it's going to be his own movie or what, but
well, the other thing that you have to remember too is there was like, I don't even know how many, but there was at least 3 or 4 different lineups for the X-Men during the comic books. You know what I mean? There's the Uncanny X-Men, there's this X-Men, there's that X-Men. They could keep having X-Men movies, and it's already been proven in the box office to be a win. I mean, think about it. Without the original few X-Men movies, we don't nearly have as much momentum kind of bringing up the Marvel comic universe. You had Blade, and then you had the X-Men and Spider-Man movies that kind of gave birth to everything and gave it a lot of traction. So it'd be interesting if they don't get back to that too, just because there are so many dynamic characters that they could, that they could exploit essentially. So I agree with you on the X-Men and the mutants. That would definitely be key, I think, here. Going to be really sad to see Professor X not be the same actor anymore, because they're gonna have to move away with it pretty soon. He's got to be close to 80 or older now. So Patrick Stewart can't keep doing it, but I don't even see anybody else as Professor X. That's honestly how narrow-minded I am about that situation. So there are some certain sadnesses that I just have to kind of gotta man up on when it comes to the cruelty of time.
Watching transitions like that in cinema is like, see, you're at the age now, Scott, where you've seen someone come out of high school or college and go right into professional sports, see their whole fucking career and have them retire. Right. Yeah. And then move on to the next great cast of a generation of athletes, right? We're seeing that in cinema also, right? I mean, you look at someone like Hugh Jackman. You can't stay that ripped for that long just for that role, that to film a movie every 4 years. Like, that's, and you can't just like gain Wolverine size in 6 months leading up to the film. I mean, you can enhance it, but you do have to like stay up and stay like that. Like Chris Evans, he can't play Captain America anymore. He can't. He's lost all that muscle. He's not even the same dude. Yeah, he's still ripped. Yeah. But I mean, that's like professional wrestler ripped. You know what I mean? Some of those guys can do that, but there's only so much you can do, and how much are you willing to do as a person, as a in your profession? Like, what are you willing to put in? So it'll be interesting to see. I really hope to see another Moon Knight in Phase 6. I'll be really bummed if that's just a hit or quitter series. It was a great series, but it did leave me with a little bit of Moon Knight blue balls, and now I don't know if I'm ever going to be the same. So,
yeah, no, I agree. I was really impressed with Moon Knight from a serious, like, suspenseful kind of dramatic aspect too, not your normal comic book flaky kind of superhero type feel, that you get from some, which, I get it. Sometimes you have to keep that more lighthearted kind of tone throughout the movie to grab the kids. But Moon Knight was not a children's show. You know what I mean? And I think that was
not at all. In fact, I had to like cover Jadzia's eyes and pause it and send her out of the room.
Yeah,
like because it's all good, and then all of a sudden, like,
it gets dark quick.
12 people are laying on the ground, and then it flashes to some of the gory ways they died or something, and you're like, well, you gotta go. Yeah, 100%. What a great series.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll see. I mean, there's a lot here that's to be determined, and that is exciting, and I'm excited to see how they kind of put these pieces in their places, and really kind of, because I think how they kind of formulate these missing gaps in phase 6 will ultimately kind of tell us more and more about what's going to be the lineup, in the Avenger movies. Because it looks like those 2 Avenger movies are kind of like the finale of the multiverse saga, right? When they end phase 6, which is kind of like curtain close, you know what I mean, on this whole scene. And then I think they're going to kind of revamp and reboot everything and probably just start doing it over again, because by the time they're done with that, I mean, they're going to be looking at a different generation of kids again to start entertaining. So it'll be interesting.
So Tom Middleton's going to get his own like feature Loki film, right? And he's got to.
I would hope so. And again, maybe not, but if he has like 1 or 2 more seasons of his own show, and he's also like the lead protagonist, you know what I mean, and the Avenger movies, that might just do it for him too, you know what I mean, by that time getting paid 15-20 mil an Avenger movie or something like that. Because that's honestly what I think from the shift in character that happened in Loki season 1, how he like went into that show kind of a quasi good guy, bad guy. He had elements of both. By the time you're done with season 1, he's like the guy you're rooting for the most in probably almost any Marvel picture they've done.
Hey, did you happen to catch in Loki? I want to say it was like halfway through the season. When he opened the drawer in the detective's room and he just saw like a drawer full of Infinity Stones. And the guy was just like, "Oh yeah, we get those all the time."
It's like
it's
no big deal.
As paperweights and stuff.
Yeah.
And he like kind of like looks up for a second, like, all my friends died for these. Like, so it affected so many lives. And these guys over here don't even know the significance of them because they just see them all the time. And there's so many multiverse universes that they have to deal with, and that it just becomes the old hat for them, that they're just like stuffed in an office drawer and like with the pins. I don't know. It was just kind of a profound moment. I think the look on his face when he tells them that how insignificant they really are.
Yeah, it is pretty. Well, and that kind of gives you, that's like a little slice, so to speak. A little slice of how much bigger this universe really is versus that one timeline in Avengers. You know what I mean? Like and I think that was kind of like, that was the stamp right there. Like, hey, let's bastardize like the stones real quick, just to show people that this is a drop in the bucket in this endless timeline of possibilities.
And it's what Kane the Destroyer, right? Is like the ultimate kind of bad guy.
I believe so. Who's going to be introduced in the 3rd Ant-Man movie to start off phase 5?
Now, is the timeline stuff going to be heavily involved in the story of the Secret Wars Avengers movie? I'm curious.
I don't know, maybe, because it sounds like the Secret Wars is like not everybody knows about them, right? So there's that.
So there's just so much to unpack. We are out of time though.
Pretty much.
Next week we're going to circle back. There was something that we wanted to talk about. We wanted to talk about all-inclusive cruises.
No, I mean, again, like every price of everything's going up. This is the one thing that's tanking, and people maybe give it a little look-see, but we'll dive into that a little bit more next week.
Yeah, I look forward to that. But thank you everyone for joining us this week. What a great topic. We'll be following up on almost every single topic we talked about here today. But it's time for us to go make some drinks and put this show into wrap. So again, like us, subscribe, tell your friends, call us, get the t-shirt. We love you. Thanks for joining us. I'm Bob West. I'm here with Scott Casanova.
Hey-o.
We'll see you next time.
See you guys.